Speaking of slam dunks, since we're now going to transition out of the NFL and into the NBA, your Detroit Pistons have won 13 games in a row. 13 games. That, my friends, is a franchise record. That, my friends, is the Pistons now are 1 win away from a new franchise record. That's how math works. Now, here's a funny thing about that stat as well. The Pistons have actually won 13 games twice in their franchise history. The first time was, I believe, the 1989-1990 season, which, for those of you who are ill-informed, they won a championship that year. The second time that they won it was in the 2003-2004 season, which, once again, in case you are ill-informed, that was also a championship season. So, they've got 2 seasons where they won 13 games in a row, and they won the championship. Now, I'm not necessarily saying they're going to win the championship because they won 13 games in a row. But I'm also not saying that. You know what I'm saying? All right. So, the Pistons, to me, are the biggest story in basketball, and in a way, I don't understand why. Well, I do kind of understand why. But I don't understand why this isn't really the thing that's talked about in all NBA circles, because this team winning 13 games in a row is actually absolutely insane, especially considering the injuries that they were dealing with and continue to deal with guys like, Cade went down for a few games. Jalen Duren was down for a game or two. Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey just recently came back from injury, and they are just body bagging teams. Like, it's not just that they're winning. It's that they are beating teams mercilessly. And even last night against the Pacers, which was the closest game they've had in a while, at least near the very end, that was on the road. So even then, it's like, okay, well, they played on the road. And look, tomorrow night, they got a game against the Celtics. And by the time that I'm probably going to clip this out. So by the time this clip goes out, we'll know the result of that game. If they do win that game, I just want to take a little bit of a look ahead, because from the last time that I talked about this team, I was thinking, man, I don't really know where their next loss is. And maybe it's going to be tomorrow night against the Celtics. They're going to come back home for Orlando, team they already beat that was the team they beat to start this win streak, was the Orlando Magic at home. I think they definitely can beat them. Miami on the road, that could be a tough game. Miami's usually a tough team to play, especially on the road. Atlanta at home, Milwaukee on the road, team that they already beat in this win streak again. Like, obviously, at some point, they're going to lose a game. I don't get it twisted. I don't think they're actually going to go 80-2. However, it would be pretty crazy if they did, though. They're going to lose at some point. But the fact that they managed to get wins against the Sixers and against the Bulls and against even Washington, the way that they did with the players out that they had, with all the injuries they were dealing with, like, you gotta admit it's pretty damn impressive. And shouting out a few of those players, I gotta give a shout out to the Linsanity run, truly the Linsanity run that is Dennis Jenkins. So the only reason I knew who this guy was because I was one of the crazy people who actually watched the Summer League. And I knew this guy. I was like, okay, yeah, he's kind of a G League player, a depth piece. Maybe you see him in a game or two. Maybe he comes up when the team is really bad at the end of the year and you just need a guy to, see if he can have a roster spot. But he's shooting 51% from the field this year, averaging 10 points a game. And in that, he's also shooting 46% from three. Now, compare that to his last year where he played 7 games, didn't start any of them, but last year he played in 7 games. He shot just 30% from the field, 14% from three, averaged a point a game. He has multiplied that by 10. 10 points a game in 20 minutes of action in 12 total games played. 4 of them as a starter. Now, again, I'm not sitting here to tell you that, Dennis Jenkins is the next coming. I'm not sure that he is. But at the very least, it speaks to the kind of culture and the development that this Pistons team has. I was going to make another point about, before I get to the culture, Duncan Robinson currently, right now, let me pull up his numbers. When I looked, he was shooting 44% from three. I could be wrong because obviously yesterday, so right now he's shooting 41%. Yesterday he was shooting 44% from three. But 41% is still very good. He's shooting 44% overall from the field. Yeah, like he might be quietly one of the better offseason additions that I don't think got a whole lot of traction. I certainly praise the move. I know a lot of people thought it was like, oh, here we go. We're just, trying to, softball this offseason. We should have made a bigger move. I thought it was a solid move. I don't think Duncan Robinson is some crazy superstar level talent, but he fills his role here and he plays pretty damn well. 12 points a game. I'll take that. Certainly coming off of the bench at points. Obviously, he's usually a starter, but as other guys find their roles here, as maybe Ivy progresses, maybe he moves to that starter role, and you might move a Duncan Robinson to the bench. But then again, they don't exactly play the same position. So, yeah, it is what it is. Either way, 12 points and shooting over 40% for three is definitely going to give Cade Cunningham the spacing that he needs. And I don't need to be a broken record to tell you that Cade Cunningham is having an MVP caliber season. Anytime you're averaging close to 30 points a game, he's got to be in the MVP conversation. Okay? Like that goes without saying. And that he's doing that, by the way, while not being that great of a shooter from three. Like shooting 28% from three, which is a not a career low as it stands, but second to last in his career. But you got to think that those numbers are going to adjust, and he's going to get back up to maybe that 30 plus 35% range, which is pretty much where he was the last couple of years. Okay. The last thing I want to point out about this team is it speaks to some of what I was talking about, which was the depth. And allow me, because I know this team has a lot of Michigan players, namely in Duncan Robinson, but this team does kind of remind me a little bit of MSU basketball. It's a lot of rebounding guys, a lot of guys who fight for the basket, namely a Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson, Ron Holland. Depth as a strength of this team. Again, speaking of Ron Holland, a great guy off the bench. Javonte Green, a guy who comes out of nowhere. Again, another solid piece off the bench. Paul Reed, another one of these like third option centers or second option center. I think he might be the second option. Or no, because Isaiah Stewart's the second option. Even Isaiah Stewart, a guy coming off the bench, averaging 10 points. Like, it is a lot of depth. There's a lot of guys coming in and being productive and getting the best out of those individual players. Again, you probably have 2, maybe 3 star to superstar level players. Cade Cunningham obviously being that superstar guy that the team orbits around, so to speak. Jalen Duren definitely has shown himself to be one of the top centers in the Eastern Conference. I mean, he's averaging 20 points a game with 11 rebounds. The guy's a walking double-double. Outside of him, are you going to put Tobias Harris in the star category? Probably not, but he's at the very least a vet and a leader. Asar Thompson, I'm not ready to go as far as to say star, but definitely a stud player, a guy that makes your team better. Jaden Ivey, we'll see where he is after he gets more of his sea legs in a couple of games. He's averaging 11 points. He looked pretty good in those couple of games, not as a starter. And then Duncan Robinson is Duncan Robinson, as already discussed. So you got to give credit to JB Bickerstaff. You got to give credit to Trajan Langdon for creating this culture. Now, look, again, I made the joke about the 13-game win streak and how the last 2 Pistons teams to do that both won championships. I'm not sure that this Pistons team is going to win a championship, but you're doing the right stuff to set yourself up for that. I mean, starting the season going 15-2, going into the late month of November, into the early parts of December, certainly going to help yourself. Certainly not going to hurt you. So, yeah, I really like this Pistons team, and I think they're proving a lot of people wrong as far as the offseason approach. Look, some of the teams that made big moves in the offseason. Let me pull up the standings here, if I may, so that I get a look at the rest of the teams. The Orlando Magic, they went out, they get Desmond Bane. They're a playing team right now. They're 10-8. 5.5 games out of first place. The trying to think of some of the other team, at least in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, the Pacers have fallen down since losing Halliburton. The Celtics fallen down since losing Tatum. The East is wide open. Okay, you have an opportunity. The second place team is the Toronto Raptors, and they're good, obviously, but this Eastern Conference very well is right there in front of you. So, I guess the question in my mind is why not Detroit? They are far and away the best team in the East right now. As far as whether they win a championship, look, the Thunder are 17-1. We might have a dynasty on our hands, fellas. That team is literally damn near unbeatable. Like that. If we end up with an Oklahoma City Thunder Detroit Pistons finals, which is, I mean, you probably don't end up with the two number one seeds in both conferences ending up making the championship game. That's usually that. I can't remember the last time that happened, honestly. Usually doesn't happen. But it's been a great start, and it's been fun, and I really hope that they do end up winning that game against Boston on the road, especially because it is a national TV game, and it'd be awesome to make franchise history on ESPN during an NBA Cup game. And for the love of God, please just have Mike Breen on the call. That's what I just want. I want to have Mike Breen highlights for my team and not have them be like, Brandon Knight, getting baptized by DeAndre Jordan. I don't think that was an ESPN game, but you know what I mean. I'd like my Mike Breen Pistons highlights to be in HD and not in like 360p, preferably. Hey, YouTube, if you like clips like that, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. We've got live shows every Tuesday night. Hope to see you there.